Well, here we are, Pete, ready for the August Virtual Planetarium, and we should say we're recording this on the longest day of the year, the summer solstice, and it's a lovely day today. So
It is a lovely day and a very early start as well because I got up to see the sunrise. So now this is going out in August. Of course, the nights will be drawing in, which will be quite nice.
Indeed. Well, just get more than a couple of hours of darkness. Okay, well, let's start as we always do with the inner solar system and the planet Mercury.
Okay.
So, best time to see it is really the very start of the month, 1st of August. You can see it 30 minutes after sunset, shining at magnitude minus zero point 0.5. It's really not very well placed, though, for this current evening elongation. It's going to be quite tricky from the UK. But by the time Mercury reaches greatest eastern elongation on the 27th of August, although it's got an impressive separation, it's some 27.3 degrees east of the sun.
That's quite a lot, isn't it, for Mercury?
It's quite a lot, but it's still quite low down,
Yeah.
unfortunately, because the angle the orbit's making to the ecliptic at this time of year. So I think it's going to be a tough one, Mercury, this season.
Yeah, well, what about Venus then, which is the next planet out? That's going to be best seen, again, at the beginning of August, about 30 minutes before sunrise. So this is the opposite end of the day to Mercury, if you like. So Venus is in the morning sky, but its position slowly degrades throughout the month. On the 1st of August, Venus rises about 2 hours before the sun and shines at magnitude minus 3.8. By the 31st of August, it rises 90 minutes before the sun, so it's gradually getting closer and closer to the sun. Through a telescope, it appears as an almost full circle at the end of the month, 97% lit and just 10 arc seconds across, which is quite small for Venus because it's on the opposite side of its orbit from us. There's a slender 4% lit waning crescent moon 9 degrees above Venus, as seen from the UK on the morning of the 25th of August, and a very thin 1% lit waning crescent moon 4.3 degrees from Venus on the morning of the 26th of August. That is quite narrow, isn't it?
It is. And we've had some fascinating things happening with Venus over the last month or so. This unusual wave phenomena seen in infrared observations from amateurs, it shows this remarkable long straight line, which is essentially a wave of clouds casting a shadow in Venus's atmosphere. It's been present on the planet in the upper atmosphere for quite some time now, and we've been following it, and it's been very interesting to watch. I think this is the longest length of time it's persisted for, so it will be interesting to see going on from June into July and August just how long this wave phenomena persists. So if you have a telescope and you do infrared imaging, you might want to have a try of Venus and see if you can see anything when this phenomena is visible.
So what would that look like? That looks like a straight line, basically, in the cloud structure.
Yes, that's right. If you go to the BAA Mercury Venus webpage, we've got the images there which show it. It has a 4.5, 5-day rotation, so it's not always visible. You have to image Venus on the days where it's there, but it's quite noticeable. As I say, this it looks very strange. This straight black line with the bright whiter clouds nearby. It's quite an unusual sight. Initially, it was thought it might be image artifacts, but it does keep the same rotation as Venus's atmosphere. That's the 4 to 5 day circulation that we see.
Right.
And a lot of analysis is being ongoing. So worth trying if you have access to an infrared filter and a telescope that can image.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's go beyond the Earth now then, out to Mars. And Mars is starting to get better. As we've gone into the summer months, through July and into August, things are changing in the sky. In the run-up to the solstice in the first half of 2022, I think it's fair to say things were a bit rubbish, weren't they? The planets were all out of the way and nothing was working in terms of time. They were all in the morning sky, not very well placed. But as we now move forward into the second half of 2022, things are getting a lot better. And Mars is brightening to magnitude minus 0.1 by the end of August.
That's quite bright.
That's quite bright for Mars, yeah.
Yeah.
At the start of the month, at magnitude plus 0.2, which is only fractionally dimmer, it'll be 1.3 degrees to the south of magnitude plus 5.8 Uranus. So if you're into getting planetary conjunctions, that's a good thing to look out for.
Yes, and recently we've had a little dust storm blow up on Mars. This is these bright orange clouds that can be seen visually or with a telescope in one of the well-known sites for starts of dust storms, and that's in the Hellas Basin, and that's this big depression we see just south of the V-shaped Syrtis Major feature. And we're still in the dust storm season, so from now till September, maybe we might get a dust storm, a large one blowing up. It's not likely to be a really massive one, but it's worth keeping an eye on Mars in case there's any of these changes, any of these orange clouds suddenly appear.
Yes, well, that's exactly what they look like, isn't it? They're light orangey coloured patches on the planet.
Yes, and they come out well, actually, in a Rand 21 orange filter. That visually makes them stand out. Yeah, stand out a bit better.
Okay. Well, Mars appears to track east against the background stars at the moment, passing 5.9 degrees south of the beautiful Pleiades open cluster on the morning of the 18th of August. So that's something to look out for as well. And we'll have a last quarter moon sitting near to the planet on the morning of the 19th of August. Now, Mars reaches the Mag 0 threshold on the 21st of August, and through the eyepiece of a telescope, the planet increases in August from 8 arc seconds across on the 1st to 9 arc seconds across on the 31st, which doesn't sound like a lot, but actually it's not bad. It's about 12.5% bigger.
Yeah, and it's actually noticeable. Mars is one of these planets because it's got such high contrasting features. You do start to notice this quite quickly. And I think anybody who's got a 6 to 8 inch telescope in that range, doesn't matter whether it's SCT, reflector, or refractor, whatever, as long as it's got an aperture size between 6 and 8 inches, now's a good time to start because you'll see plenty of stuff on Mars. And as Pete and myself have always said, when it comes to Mars, you kind of have to get back into observing it as early as possible because it doesn't come to opposition every year like Jupiter and Saturn or Uranus and Neptune. It's every 2 years because of a slightly elliptical orbit. And so you forget all of your observing techniques. So the earlier you start, the better you get ready for the time of opposition.
And of course, if you go out and look for it at the end of August, say about 4 o'clock in the morning UT, so 5 o'clock BST, it will reach an altitude from the centre of the UK about 51 degrees up. So
that's high up. That's high. That's really good.
Yeah, that's the most exciting part of all, actually. Because
I'm already having heart flutters, Pete. Okay, well that's Mars. Something to carry on with. We'll have plenty more to say about Mars in the coming months. Moving out to the outer solar system now, Jupiter, giant planet Jupiter, is improving ahead of its opposition in late September. By the middle of the month, Jupiter reaches its highest point in the sky, so due south under fairly dark conditions. And on the 15th of August, it's magnitude minus 2.6, and it is joined by a 87% lit waning gibbous moon. And by the end of August, Jupiter's brightened up a bit more, minus 2.7, located in Cetus, right on the celestial border with Pisces. And I saw Jupiter, I observed with a telescope, but I did see it fairly recently. And it's amazing how much higher in the sky it looks. I expect you see this from your location, Pete, because you've got a wonderful western horizon. So you'll really notice the difference this year in altitude.
Yeah, well, of course, at the time we're recording this, Jupiter for me is in the southeast. In fact, I saw it this morning when I went out to see the solstice sunrise next to the moon, and it did look resplendent, shining away there. Actually, this is quite an important opposition coming up at the end of September because Jupiter is going to be at perihelion at the beginning of 2023. So that means it'll be at the closest point in its orbit towards the sun.
Yeah, so that's quite... I don't think we'll notice a huge change in apparent diameter, but it is nice to note that after this as well, the planet will continue on a northward trajectory upwards, becoming better and better in UK skies.
Yeah, well, it manages to reach altitude 38 degrees at the end of August at about 2 o'clock UT in the morning. So that's not bad. That's a lot better than it has been over previous years. But yeah, it will be interesting to see whether we do get a little boost due to it being near perihelion. Because when it's at perihelion, of course, the distance between Jupiter and the sun is at its lowest value, which means that when Jupiter is at opposition, it's closer to the Earth than it would otherwise be. In fact, we're not far from aphelion, are we?
No.
Which is when Earth is furthest from the sun. So the distance between Earth and Jupiter must be getting fairly or quite low in terms of how low it can go.
Yes, and I imagine that you never know. It would be worth taking an image around this time and comparing it with one a couple of years ago and seeing if you can tell if there's any difference in actual size, if you can scale the images so that any genuine effect is present and not an artifact.
We'll take anything we can get.
Yes. Well, given how bad the planets have been for the last couple of years, it's nice to come onto this podcast and have something fairly upbeat and real to say. So
yeah, absolutely.
So it'd be good to see Jupiter getting better and larger. Moving out, planet Saturn. Saturn comes to opposition on the 14th of August. So what do we mean by opposition? We've said this many times before. It means that the sun is opposite the sun in the sky, and at midnight it's due south. And this is the best time to view it because that's when it's available in the night sky for the longest amount of time.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting phenomenon we always point out for Saturn before opposition occurs, and that's something known as the Seelinger effect or the opposition effect. And for a week before opposition, Saturn's rings start to brighten, and then at the time of opposition they're noticeably brighter than usual, and then they dim down again. And the reason for that is Chitala geometry. It's because the sun is shining directly on the particles in the rings, and the particles that cast shadows are directly obscured by the particles themselves, so you don't get any shadows on the ring system from the particles making it up, and it looks a lot brighter. It's quite a phenomena visually and in images.
Yes, it is, and it's a real thing. You can really see it. It's a bit like if you go and stand in a field with slightly long grass, and if you sort of about 3 inches or so, and if you look at where your shadow is, if you look where your head is in the shadow, you'll see that the grass around your head looks brighter than the grass away from that position. And that's because the grass around your head, all the shadows of the blades of grass are hidden behind the bright faces of grass. But when you look away from that position, you're seeing those shadows, and those shadows contribute to darkening the appearance of the grass. So that's a similar effect.
I have never heard that phenomena described in terms of grass before, but there we go.
It's the grass on Saturn.
It's the grass on Saturn.
It needs cutting.
So that'll be a fun thing to look out for. Saturn at the moment shows similar sort of features as Jupiter, although a lot more muted because of this petrochemical haze in the upper atmosphere.
Yes.
But you never know, a storm might break out on Saturn, and that would be quite interesting. But at the moment, it's worth following, as I say. One thing that you will notice, compared to last year, is just how much narrower the rings are. I observed Saturn a couple of weeks ago, and it was quite surprising just how much now of the southern hemisphere you can see, including, I think, the South Temperate Belt,
yes,
the shadow of the ring, the globe on the rings. And I found there was quite a noticeable colour difference between the two hemispheres. So It's quite nice to have all this coming back again.
Yeah, definitely. And it is getting higher. It's not very high at the moment. It gets its best height this month in August is about 22 degrees, which may not set the skies alight, but it's a lot better than it has been.
Yeah, absolutely. It now clears the rooftops for a good half hour for me.
Okay. Well, Uranus is the next one out, and we've mentioned before that Mag plus 5.8 Uranus will be joined by Mars in the morning sky at the beginning of August. On the morning of the 2nd of August, Mag plus 0.2 Mars is located 1.3 degrees south of Uranus, and by the end of August, now shining at Mag plus 5.7, Uranus is able to reach an altitude of 50 degrees under truly dark skies. I did have a session with Uranus a while back now when the seeing actually got good, and it was quite exciting actually, because it does reveal a lot more with the planet, especially if you've got a bigger telescope. You can start to pull out the detail.
Yes, you can. So I noticed quite a big difference between observing Uranus with my 12-inch Newtonian compared to with my 8-inch Newtonian. The planet is slowly tilting, so one of its poles, I think it might be the North Pole, but I'm not entirely sure of that, is slowly presenting towards us. And you can, in images, see a brighter zone is there, and I was able to see that visually.
Yeah.
And of course, with the imaging, you can actually pull out a lot of the satellites. But it's always good fun to see how many you can see visually through a telescope, through a 12-inch telescope.
Yes, it is.
It's quite a test of the optics and your visual acuity.
The same is true with Neptune, actually, the furthermost planet in our solar system. Neptune slips across the border this month from Pisces into Aquarius. In fact, it's been crawling its way out of Aquarius and got into Pisces. You think, wow, it's moved into the next constellation. Now it's slipping back into Aquarius again on the 18th of August. It's currently located south of the Circlet asterism in Pisces, shining at mag plus 7.8. So it's the only planet which requires optical assistance to see. I mean, you could technically see Uranus, I suppose, with the naked eye, but it's a bit of a challenge, isn't it?
It is. I've never actually done it.
I've done it a couple of times, but I've had really clear skies when I've done that.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge.
When Neptune reaches opposition next month, and it's now well placed for UK observation, you won't see very much of Neptune, of course, because it is so distant, but you will be able to see its little blue disk, and you can see its brighter moon Triton. It's not actually that difficult, Triton.
No, it's not. I've seen it with an 8-inch telescope, and it's much easier with a 12-inch telescope. I've never really seen any surface features on Neptune. It's always been fairly uniformly bland, but a lovely blue colour. So
it is a lovely blue colour. Okay, well, let's now have a look at some of the specials that are occurring. On the 3rd of August, mag minus 0.3 Mercury will be roughly 1 degree from mag plus 1.3 Regulus. That's on the 3rd and the 4th of August, which is a possible telescope target if you're used to locating Mercury during the day. So you might be able to, if you can sort of latch on to Mercury, you might be able to see Regulus in the daytime sky as well, which has a novelty value to it. I don't know if you've ever done this, but it is quite surprising because the stars do stand out really well during the day.
I've never done it with stars. I've done it with Venus, I've done it with Jupiter, and I've done it with Mercury.
Right.
Venus is very easy to see against the background sky. Mercury is quite tricky to see in the daytime. Jupiter, even though it's larger and brighter, is surprisingly difficult because it seems that the light is spread out over that large surface.
Oh, it loses its contrast completely.
It does. It's really quite tough. I imagine a star would be easier than any of those because it's a single point source of lights.
Absolutely right, yeah. And that's why they stand out so well. And when you get a bright one and you sort of lock onto it, I mean, the problem is finding it, obviously. If you're looking through the eyepiece at a blue sky, you just look at the blue sky and you're not sure where the focus point is or anything, which is why it helps if you've got something like a planet or the moon in the field of view, because that gives you something to focus on. And then you look around and you should be able to see the stars shining away there. There's information in the magazine if anybody wants to have a go, but just do take care because the sun will be just 18 degrees to the west of this pair.
Yes, you don't want to catch the sun. Back to focusing, I always put pencil marks on the draw tube of the eyepiece tube, so I know where things focus.
Yeah, but it's actually latching your eye on sometimes as well. If it's a point source, you can. It's like looking through binoculars when they are properly focused, and you're looking for something. You start to doubt whether your eyes are focused properly on the object. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's difficult. Okay, another special we have is on the 4th of August. This is a Claire obscure effects, known as the Lunar X and the Lunar V, and these will be visible on the terminator of the afternoon's 42% lit waxing crescent moon. The effects will be formed from around 1920 BST, so 1820 UT, when the moon is just west of the south in the daytime sky.
Yeah, but it should be quite easy to see them if you've got a telescope, even in the daytime sky.
Yes.
The big problem with the moon is that it doesn't, again, we lose contrast, but it is bright enough to be able to withstand the daytime sky. On the 13th, the evening plays host to the peak of the Perseid meteor shower, but you've got a just past full moon in Aquarius this year, and that will render the visual appearance of the shower unfavourable, unfortunately. I mean, you might still see some bright trails, but it's going to be a struggle. If you're into taking photographs of meteors, again, have a look inside the magazine where you will find information on how to attempt photography, because you can still photograph Perseids even though the moon is in the sky. You just need to be aware of what exposures, etc., to use.
And on the 23rd, we have minor planet for Vesta reaches opposition at magnitude 6, so technically within optical visual ability, but I think you need a very, very dark sky to see it.
Yeah.
For Vesta, as it's called, has the potential to appear the brightest of the minor planets, because it can reach magnitude 5.1, which is quite bright for these objects, when it's a favourable opposition.
Yes.
And then it's easily visible to the naked eye from a dark sky location. This minor planet reaches opposition on the 23rd of August, and although it's not quite as bright as it can get, it is, as we just said, technically on the naked eye visibility threshold. Not easy from a town, but if you have access to a dark sky, then you might well catch it.
Yeah. Okay, well, on the 25th, we have a 4% lit waning crescent moon, 3 degrees north of the Beehive cluster, M44, and that's going to be visible very low above the east-northeast horizon just before dawn starts to take hold. So that could be quite a nice subject for a photograph if you want to get out and have a go at that pairing. And about 40 minutes later, after they've appeared, Mag minus 3.8 Venus will appear as well, 9 degrees southeast of the moon. So quite a nice grouping, actually, in the morning sky there.
Yeah, nice to look at or to take an image of.
Okay, well, let's go out to the stars now. And, of course, dominating the view to the south is the huge triangle of bright stars known as the Summer Triangle. 3 stars which make up the triangle are known as Deneb, Vega and Altair, and they're the primary stars of the constellations Cygnus the Swan, Lyra the Lyre, and Aquila the Eagle. And of the 3, I think it's probably fair to say that Cygnus is the most impressive pattern, isn't it?
Yeah, it's such a large constellation, also known as the Northern Cross. So it is very recognisable. You've got Deneb at the top, steely blue colour, and then the very easily identifiable cross shape. And at the bottom, you've got the beautiful star Albireo, which is really, I still think it's one of the most beautiful double stars in the night sky. It's splendid.
Oh, if you look through a telescope, and it's just incredible, really. I sometimes forget, and then I sort of think, oh, I'll just have a quick look at Albireo, and I'm always impressed with it. The colour contrast between the sort of golden yellow primary and the azure blue secondary is quite striking, really. At the centre of the Northern Cross lies Sada, with the star Gina to the east and Delta Cygni to the west or right of the cross. Now, for years we've been calling that Rook, I think, which is, but it's, as far as I was aware, it never had a proper name, but I believe it does have an IAU designated name now, which is something like Phawaris.
Right. Why have we been calling it Rook then?
I don't know. We did a Sky at Night years ago, and somebody did a bit of research, and Rook is a valid name.
Right. Okay.
The new name I only came across, well, literally a few months back. So I think it's just been allocated. They thought, oh, we've missed that one. We'll slip that one in.
Oh well.
But yeah. So no, that's quite interesting, really. If you've got good dark skies, look to the northeast of Deneb and see if you can spot a faint misty patch of stars. That's where you'll find NGC 7000, which is the North American nebula. And the best thing to see it with, actually, is the eye, naked eye, under really dark sky conditions. If you look at it with any optical equipment, it tends to disappear because you're looking through it. It's so large.
It does, actually. And telescopically, it's a bit of a write-off.
Yeah.
Binoculars is tough, but the best place I ever saw it was from a very dark sky in summer, just with the unaided eye, and there it was. So that was the best view I've ever had of it.
I think, I think with a telescope, the best bet is to look at some of the objects which are contained within it. And there is the brightest area, which is called the Gulf of Mexico, which is that does stand out fairly well. So I think telescope, you're picking out bits of the continent, if we can call it that, whereas with the naked eye you get an overview. Binoculars, they sort of work, but they're not that good actually. I've never found them that pleasing with NGC 7000.
No, I quite agree.
Okay, well, Aquila is also roughly cross-shaped, but the pattern is not as well defined as that of Cygnus, and definitely less impressive. The main star Aquila is Altair, as we've already mentioned, and that's flanked by two fainter stars called Tarazed and Olshane, and that's a very good way of identifying Altair to make sure you've got it. And it almost looks as if the two giant birds are flying across the sky in formation, but this is not so really.
Can two birds be in a formation? They can only ever be in a straight line, surely.
Well, a swan and an eagle, I'm not sure.
Dear, yes. One of the things we should note is that Cygnus, in particular, is home to the Milky Way. This is one of the spiral arms of the galaxy that passes down through Cygnus, it's actually through Cassiopeia, Perseus, down through Cygnus and down towards Sagittarius, towards the centre of the galaxy. And if you've got dark skies, the Milky Way in a dark sky when it's right overhead is really quite a spectacular sight.
It's the best part of the Milky Way to see from the UK, to be honest. And if you do get a view of it, if you've got a really good dark sky location, then look out for the split which occurs down the vertical of Cygnus, or the Northern Cross, and that's called the Cygnus Rift, and that's due to a dark dust cloud which is in between us and the myriad of fainter stars which form the Milky Way further beyond. It's a beautiful sight, really, and it's quite stunning when the moon is out of the way. But you do need to make sure that the moon is out of the way. And again, if you can get to a dark sky location, it is really worth the effort. So I think we'll probably wrap it up there, as we've gone on a bit about planets and the specials which are occurring this year. So get outside, enjoy some of the things we've mentioned, and fingers crossed for clear skies. So thank you very much, Paul.
Thanks, Pete.